These moves could save your fantasy football season, whether you're 0-2 or 1-1, or even if you're 2-0. These are still moves that you should probably be making for your fantasy football teams. We're going to start with Marvin Harrison Jr. How we normally do this, we tell you whether they're a buy, a sell, or a hold. And in this case with Marvin Harrison Jr., here's my dilemma. 18 points in week 1 was great, but it was only on 6 targets. He caught 5 of those, and he had a touchdown. In a week where he doesn't score a touchdown, a game in Carolina Panthers where they scored 27 points, he was targeted 5 times. He caught 2 of those. He didn't have any touchdowns. He had 4.7 points and 5 targets, only caught 2 of those. And so you have to ask yourself why that's happening. And I think a lot of this, and we kind of talked about this going into the season, Marv does look better. If you're watching him on the field, he does look better than he did last season with Kyler Murray. The problem is Kyler Murray looks the same as Kyler Murray has looked for the first 6 years of his career. And that really is the limiting factor for Marvin Harrison Jr. I have a hot take for you. As much as I love Marvin Harrison Jr., as much as I think that he is still going to be that alpha X wide receiver in the NFL, this year I am slightly concerned about Kyler Murray. For that reason, I'm going to make Marvin Harrison Jr. a soft sell. I think this is a good move for your fantasy football teams because when you're looking at where he's ranked, according to the expert consensus rankings over on the site, we've got the link down below. You can get him for free. He's ranked right now as the 31st player in fantasy football. That puts him right at the end of the third. That's pretty much where he was ranked and where he was going before the season. And so what we've seen in a small sample size, but still a sample size at that, is that Marvin Harrison Jr., he still is going to, in my opinion, be fantasy relevant this year. Still somebody you want to flex, but he's not going to be that alpha receiver where he's scoring 20 to 30 points per game. And I don't think it's because of Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's because of Kyler Murray. I was optimistic coming into the season that the Cardinals were going to change their offense to better utilize Marvin Harrison Jr.'s strengths. So far, it's a small sample size, and I understand that. So far, that has not happened. And so I want to be conservative here because I don't want to tell you to hard sell Marvin Harrison Jr. because, we saw it in one good week and one bad week. But I will say this, in terms of sustainability, in terms of what I was looking to change or what I was looking to see change coming into this year, Marv looks better, in my opinion. I think he looks like a better receiver. Kyler does not look better. The offense doesn't look like it's going to be using Marv how they should use Marv. And I get he's going to be boom bust, so that's why I'm going to say soft sell. I'm only selling Marvin Harrison Jr., for example. Who would I sell Marvin Harrison Jr. for at this point in time? From a wide receiver perspective, I would still take A.J. Brown over Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not freaking out about him. Brian Thomas is somebody else that people are panicking on. I would still take BTJ over him. Ladd McConkey, I would still take over Marvin Harrison Jr. In terms of the running back position, or if you're flipping him for another position here, he's right around guys like Chase Brown, Amarian Hampton, quarterback Jaden Daniels, Breece Hall, Devontae Adams, even Ted McMillan. I think most of the guys around him, I don't know what your verdict is. We'll get to Nathan's verdict now, but I would probably take all those guys over Marv rest of the season just because I feel more comfortable with those guys, especially a running back if you can afford it. I'm honestly, it's not Marv that worries me. It's Kyler that worries me. And while, again, I do have full confidence that Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be an amazing NFL receiver and even will be a good NFL receiver this season, Kyler is scaring the crap out of me right now.
Yeah. Kyler is definitely a concern, but when you're looking at some of the guys ranked around him, I think other quarterback situations can be just as concerning. I moved Marv down a couple spots this week, specifically like Rome Odunze. I had Odunze jumping Marv this week. He's getting more consistent target volume. He's actually getting a lot of touchdown usage, which they said was going to be the case in the red zone in training camp in the preseason. I've got Ladd and A.J. Brown ranked over Marv as well. But like most people, I haven't really moved him yet because I'm more on the side of hold, because I think any given week with Marv, you saw this last year. And again, it was a little bit of a different scenario because Marv was a rookie last season. But the moment he had a big game, it was like, oh, Marv's here. And a lot of times those were touchdown games, but they were like, he's very BTJ-esque in that he doesn't require 12 targets to be productive, which is the nice upside potential and promise that Marv has, and the optimism that results in the optimism that a lot of people will continue to have this season, because he can have 6, 7, 8 targets, haul in 4 or 5 of them, and have 20 points. That's kind of his skill set, which is nice when you're talking about upside, not so nice when it comes to floor. So honestly, the only way that I would willingly sell off Marvin Harrison Jr. is if I can get a guy that has a higher floor. If you can move Marv for Rome Odunze, I would rather have Rome Odunze. If you can move Marv for JSN, which I think that ship has sailed realistically, I would rather have JSN. Ladd McConkey, I think, is right there. Garrett Wilson, I think, is right there. I mean, as far as the verdict is concerned, with me for Marv, I'm going to lean hold because I could go either way. at some point in the future. And here's what I know without a shadow of a doubt. I know that Marv is going to have another big game. I don't know how consistent it's going to be, but I know that you can probably sell him more if he has another big game within the next 2 weeks, and then probably sell him for more at that point if you're worried about, hey, maybe Nico Collins has another down game or something like that. So that's kind of where I'm at with him. I'm not far off from you in terms. Where do you have him ranked? I'm at wide receiver 14.
I think I have him ranked at wide receiver 14 as well. And so
yeah,
it's just a matter of like, even though I have him as wide receiver 15, I have him behind Rome, Ladd, Garrett Wilson, AJ Brown. And I just think I've got him last in that tier. And if I can pivot to any of the guys in that tier, I'm selling him. That's why he's a soft sell. Again, I will only sell him if I can get the guys I want. But if I can get the guys I want, I'll do it. I mean, pretty easily. And so I think you kind of agreed. Rome you would take, Ladd you would take, Garrett Wilson you would take, AJ Brown you would take, right?
Garrett Wilson is right there. I'm more like with him because he's in a worse situation. So, but
true.
Yeah, I have both of them too in the flock league.
Yeah, you do. So you know better than I do.
So our next guy here is going to be J.K. Dobbins. He's coming off of another solid game. He started the season off really well, 14 points, or actually just under 15 points against Tennessee, and 15.5 points against Indianapolis. That volume has been pretty dang consistent. I mean, gotta show him his flowers and give him credit here. And the reason I want to talk about this is because you're obviously going to have RJ Harvey kind of as like the boogeyman for the rest of the season. Whether that actually comes to fruition where he eats into J.K. Dobbins' workload or not, it does matter that he's there. When you're looking at the total plays, J.K. Dobbins is the number one option there, 27 total opportunities, RJ Harvey with 19, Tyler Beatty actually getting a lot of snaps there with 13. Early down work is split almost evenly between Dobbins and Harvey. I like the goal line carries. That's what I like to look at here. Dobbins with 6 goal line carries compared to RJ Harvey's 1. Tyler Beatty actually gets all the 2-minute drill opportunities, most of the third down opportunities. Dobbins is never in there on third down, or he wasn't, at least in week 2 against the Colts.
He's their early down back.
He's your bruiser, right? He's your goal line, big body guy that's going to get all of the touchdown opportunity for the most part, the short yardage opportunity, and the brunt of the work, because first and second down versus third down alone is just that's what it's gonna result in for Dobbins. So I will say, as long as J.K. Dobbins stays healthy, which is obviously like the biggest if of all time because he's gotten injured every year that he's been in the league and they've always been significant injuries. As long as J.K. Dobbins is healthy and on the field, I think he's effectively going to be the lead guy there until RJ Harvey can really start to eat into this workload. And I don't think he really has the build or skill set necessarily this early on to really take over that position or that opportunity for J.K. Dobbins. So I've kind of flipped a little bit on Harvey's outlook this season. I've moved him down my rankings quite a bit.
I have to.
I have J.K. Dobbins right now as a borderline top 24 running back. I have him in that same tier as Quinshawn, Krosky Merritt, Montgomery, Swift, Warren. Basically all guys that like have competition within their backfield, but not enough that it's really taking away from their volume in the short term at the very least. And I moved Harvey all the way down below Pacheco and Kareem Hunt because Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, as bad as they are at least splitting the carries 50-50. Harvey's like not getting that much work. Ramondre is out producing him right now. I'd rather have Ramondre. Bashal Tuten actually is producing. I would rather have Bashal Tuten. Mason, Aaron Jones, Tyron Tracy, Charbonnet, every single one of those guys you can actually flex. You're not happy about it. You're not comfortable about it. But RJ Harvey is purely an upside future outlook play at this point where like really if it weren't for his name value and the investment that they put into RJ Harvey in the offseason, he wouldn't be rosterable. So this and obviously the Dobbins risk of him being injured. So right now I'm also going to be hold. I don't think you can sell him super low right now. If someone's like super optimistic that he's going to, get opportunity in the short run, I guess you can sell him, but I don't think that's really possible at the moment. I think everyone's pretty low on Harvey and I think it's merited.
I would also hold Dobbins. I've got him ranked at running back 26 in the same tier as you do. Swift, Krosky Merritt, Charbonnet, Stevenson, Judkins, and Montgomery in that tier with him.
Yeah.
I do have him a tier above RJ Harvey, who I have 5 spots behind J.K. Dobbins now. And, I still think that You do look at the snap share for J.K. Dobbins, and it did decrease week over week. So they did give R.J. Harvey a little bit more run. The problem is again, he's getting all the relevant touches there. He's scoring the touchdowns, and I don't want to overreact with Harvey, but at this point, I think if you have J.K. Dobbins, you hold him absolutely, because he looks to be somebody that you can flex every single week, which is awesome. And so that's really what you wanted out of J.K. Dobbins. If you draft him, it's what you get. Let's go to Chuba Hubbard. Chuba is the running back 7 so far in the season, 17 and 18 points in weeks 1 and 2 respectively against Jacksonville and Arizona. So not the best competition. And I think maybe that's why we have to have the discussion. How sustainable do you think this is for Chuba Hubbard? When you're looking at last year, though, I mean, he had stretches between like week 12 and 16 for example, 15 to 28 and 32. So very hit or miss through those games. But he also had, back-to-back 20-point games multiple times last year. You saw that happen 3 times last year for Chuba Hubbard. And so my main thing is with Chuba, I mean, it looks like Rico Dowdle's a complete non-factor for there. He's getting 74% of the snaps in that offense against Arizona. He only ran the ball 10 times in this game, but had 6 targets. He had 5 targets in week 1 as well. So this guy's getting, at this point, 5+ targets a game, catching 3 to 5 of those every game. Even though he's not getting 20 carries a game, it doesn't really matter. And so he hasn't even scored a rushing touchdown yet this year. He's had 2 receiving touchdowns.
And I think that's the big question. That's why I put him on here, is Rico Dowdle actually out-carried him in terms of goal line opportunities, 4-2, which is pretty significant when you're talking about potential touchdown upside for Chuba Hubbard. But I'm with you. For a guy that's going to get, if he's going to get 5-6 targets a game and haul in a majority of those and be pretty efficient with that opportunity in the receiving game, I think that does raise Chuba's floor quite a bit, regardless of whether he does or does not get goal line carries. So this might be, look, if Rico Dowdle continues to get goal line carries, this will cap Chuba Hubbard's ceiling. But you're talking about a guy who's probably going to finish the season with this volume without a majority of goal line carries still as a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2. And I think I'm with you. I would be holding if someone's freaking about Rico Dowdle potentially taking away those red zone and goal line opportunities. I might see if you can even just get Chuba Hubbard at a reasonable price, like just a reasonable one.
Well, I mean, this week you had Chuba take 7 of the 11 third down snaps for Carolina, whereas last week you had Rico Dowdle take almost all of those.
Yeah,
so actually,
it's almost like they're trying to figure out how to utilize Rico in that offense.
And I think they're figuring out that
if at all,
the less they use him, the better. Is what I think they're figuring out. Like personally, Chuba Hubbard is somebody I still think flies under the radar in rankings. For that reason, like
I would go soft buy.
I that's where I'm at. I'm a soft buy. And my thought process here is like, if I could buy Chuba Hubbard in the Flock League, maybe Nick will trade him to me. I don't know. But Nick's a Canadian. Chuba Hubbard is Canadian. So hey, there's kind of got that connection going on. If I could buy him, though, I actually would do it. I would be very interested in buying Chuba Hubbard, to be honest with you. And I do have him ranked in this I have a big tier for my running backs. From running backs 9 through 17, I all have in one tier. Because Jacobs, Cook, Bucky, Hampton, Brees, Kyron, Chase Brown, Kamara, and Hubbard have all pretty much produced about the same this year. And they all were really, this is where they were being drafted. We really have no reason to move any of them up a tier or down a tier yet. And Hubbard's at the bottom of that tier. But right now, I mean, again, I'm seeing the guy at the bottom of the tier here, and I'm like, I don't mind him as a soft buy. I think he still doesn't have a ton of name value. I still think he's not the sexiest pick. And so for that reason, I think he could be a soft buy. So I'm with you on that. With Chuba, I think that at the end of the day, he could end up being somebody that, like last year, just ends up being a very consistent fantasy flex spot guy, ends up being a high-end running back too, and that's really what you drafted him to be.
Tony Pollard, on the other hand, is getting this volume that you wish a ton of running backs that were more talented than him would get, and he's, of course, not making the most of that opportunity. This is kind of classic Tony Pollard. 18 carries in week 1 against Denver. You'd be like, dang, 18 carries? I mean, you got to be talking at minimum 10 to 12 points. 7.9 points. Week 2, 20 carries. Same thing. You'd be talking minimum 10 to 12 points without a touchdown. And he has single digits again, 9 points. This is the exact same story as last year, where you were literally, it was like pulling teeth trying to get Tony Pollard to just make it into the end zone every single week so that he didn't screw you in your flex. Generally, I mean, 9 times out of 10, when a running back is getting this caliber of volume like Tony Pollard, you're like, at the very least, he's high floor. Not for Tony Pollard. It's not high floor. He could get 15 to 20 carries and drop 5-6 points. We've seen this. We've literally seen this before. He had 22 carries in Week 18 against Houston last season, 6 points. 17 carries against Cincinnati in Week 15 in 2024, 8 points. 16 carries in Week 7 against Buffalo, 8 points. He's done this time and time and time again. In this offense, again, with Cam Ward at the helm, you've seen some flashes with Cam Ward and what he could be capable of doing long-term for the Tennessee Titans. But as far as Tony Pollard is concerned, he has shown us now for the last 3 years that he is inefficient with high levels of volume. And he doesn't get enough receiving volume for us to be super optimistic that he's going to be able to raise his floor. A low-end running back 1 in 2024, and he finished as a high-end running back 2 with Dallas in 2023, but that was a better situation. This is not a positive outlook for Tony Pollard. Zach and the Flock League traded away Tony Pollard for this exact reason. He lasted 1 week with Tony Pollard on his team, and he was like, I can't handle this. And I understand how you feel, Zach, because I had to deal with this last year when I traded for him. I thought the volume would be enough for him to raise his floor. It's not. No one else is competing with the opportunity that Pollard has in that offense. If you can get anyone who is attracted to that 18 plus opportunities a week with Pollard, I would capitalize, because the moment Spears is back from this IR stint, they're going to give him touches because at least he's more consistently explosive. At least he has some sort of like fireworks show ability, and Pollard just doesn't at this point in his career. And I'm not trying to be like, I guess I am trying to be a Pollard downer. I'm not trying to be a hater. I'm just trying to be realistic, guys. We've seen this for 2.5 years. And it's not going to change in a situation that isn't really looking much better than it has for the last couple of years for Tony Pollard. So I'm going to go soft sell.
I'm with you. I think, if you can get anything like you're mentioning for Tony Pollard, I mean, that's why I traded Tony Pollard to you after 1 week last year, because I was like, I can't handle this. I want Nathan to suffer this. And so,
yep.
And it's
now
tough.
Mason has to
I mean,
suffer
again, a guy that gets 90% of the snaps there, 89% snap share in each of his first 2 weeks, and he can't score a touchdown.
Yeah,
I mean, it's brutal. So yeah, no, I think part of it is people are a little bit higher on Tony Pollard still because there is nobody else there, but that's a little bit of the vacated volume fallacy coming in. I think it's just because he's there and he's a warm body doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be that fantasy productive every single week. Let's pivot down to Ricky Pearsall. Now, obviously, you saw Ricky's first game without Brock Purdy. He had 9.2 points against New Orleans. He had 6 targets though from Mac Jones. He ended up being a fine flex play. Really what I'm noticing with Ricky Pearsall so far this season, 4 receptions in each of his couple games, the difference really between his production in week 1 and his production in week 2 was that in week 1 he had a very long play. He had a big play, and that, brought his yardage up 50 yards past what it was in week 2. Week 2, he didn't have the big play. And so, but here's the thing, is Ricky Pearsall big play dependent? I don't think he is. In the week where he doesn't have the big play, he scores 9 points. That's serviceable for your flex spot. In the week where he does score the big play, he has 14 points. Math, in the week where he scores the touchdown, he has 15 points. In the week where he scores the big play and the touchdown, he has 20 points. And so I think you're looking at Ricky Pearsall, and what we're basically trying to evaluate through a couple weeks is what is his floor and what is his ceiling. Well, I think we've seen his floor, because I don't think he, in this offense, with no George Kittle and no Brandon Ayuk for the foreseeable future, and Juwan Jennings, who he can share with, and Christian McCaffrey, and without Brock Purdy, he had 6 targets. I think that's probably his floor. I think 4 receptions is his floor. I think 50 yards, and that's, 14 yards per catch, I think that's his floor. Because realistically, I think that yards per catch number can be much higher throughout the entire season. So if you're buying Ricky Pearsall now at his 9.2 fantasy point floor on a weekly basis, I'm good with it. When I'm looking at the guys going around Ricky Pearsall, it's kind of a big cluster frick of guys here when you're thinking about it. Olave is obviously a guy with higher target volume, so you're looking at 10 plus targets per game. Worthy is banged up, but he's on a better offense. You got Jacoby Myers, who's always, goated here. You got DJ Moore around him, who I would take Ricky Pearsall very easily. There's a segment of guys that ranked about 3 spots below Ricky Pearsall. DJ Moore, Calvin Ridley, Jalen Waddle, Keon Coleman, Jordan Addison, Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy. When you get on the Flock Expert consensus rankings, really to like DJ Moore and beyond, I would trade all those guys for Ricky Pearsall very easily. Soft buy for Ricky Pearsall for me. I still think he's ranked a little bit low in comparison to where he could be. I think we're going to be talking about Ricky Pearsall in the DK, Rashee Rice, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel. What is where Rashee Rice is now? Basically, that's like the wide receiver 27 range. I think at the end of the day, we might end up talking about him in that range, like a high-end wide receiver 3. That's probably my outlook for him rest of the season. And so right now, I think his price is okay. I'm going to go soft buy for Ricky.
I'll go hold for Ricky. I think it's interesting that Jennings got 10 targets with Mac Jones. Do I think that's going to happen every single week? I really don't know. The offense is funneled through CMC, again, with no George Kittle. Once Kittle comes back and Ayuk comes back, which is right around when Purdy's going to come back, just makes you wonder like what the boom bust, what the floor and the ceiling is going to be for Ricky Pearsall for the rest of the season. That's why I'm going to go hold for now, but I understand why you'd want to buy him as well. He's a pretty nice flex option at the moment.
Yeah.
So Sam LaPorta is a guy that I think is important to talk about at the tight end position, because this is a discussion that we've been having with LaPorta and really Jameson Williams for a long time at this point, literally dating all the way back to last year, heading into the 2024 season. We were like, hey, I think we're going to get to a point where with the volume that Jared Goff consistently offers in this offense, which is generally not 52 pass attempts like he did in a couple of games in years past. He's around that like 30-ish range. And with Amon-Ra St. Brown producing at a high level, with Gibbs and Monty getting touches in the red zone, it's basically going to be Jamo or LaPorta. There's only room for one of them any given week to produce at a high level. And week 1, it really was looking to be Sam LaPorta. Week 2, it was looking to be Jameson Williams, which makes me question, is it just going to be Jamo or LaPorta every single week? Maybe it's not Jamo or LaPorta every single year. Maybe it's Jamo or LaPorta this week, that week, this week, that week. And at that point, how can you predict when Sam LaPorta is going to have a good week and when he's going to have a bad week? Honestly, the same discussion here could apply to Jameson Williams. Heck, put Jamo's thing on here as well, because now we've had 2 polar opposite weeks for Jameson Williams. He had a 20-point game and a nothing production game really at all in week 1. And again, it was a tough matchup against the Packers. They have like potentially one of the best defenses in the NFL at this point. But I kind of want to know, before I come up with my verdict, I want to know what you feel personally as a Sam LaPorta owner in the Flock League. I mean, how do you feel about this?
I think Sam LaPorta, you saw last year, he's going to have games where he only has 3-4 points. I mean, he had 5.6, and so for reference, at the beginning of last year, he had 5.6 in week 3. He had 3 in week 2. He had 9 in week 4. He had 8 in week 1. But even at the end of the season, you saw his target volume. I actually think this is more indicative of a 3-touchdown Amon-Ra St. Brown game yesterday with 11 targets than it is a Jameson Williams game, where when you're looking at Jameson Williams, he only had 4 targets yesterday. He only caught 2 passes. All Jameson Williams did yesterday, he caught 2 passes. He caught 1 long touchdown and 1 long non-touchdown. That's it. Realistically, I'm not seeing a super big correlation in those 2 catches in Sam LaPorta's day. I think there were 2 factors yesterday that cut into Sam LaPorta's production, and this is why I'm not necessarily freaking out. At the end of the day, Sam LaPorta is a tight end in a good offense. I think this is probably his floor this year. Here's the reason that I think it comes down to, you had Brock Wright have the red zone touchdown coming across formation, and a touchdown that probably should have been Sam LaPorta's realistically. And then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown yesterday, 3 touchdowns, 11 targets, 9 receptions. And outside of that, I mean, they got up very fast, very early, and were able to just run the ball. I mean, I don't even know how much LaPorta was in at the end of the game. He only played 85% of snaps yesterday, which when you're looking for him, I mean, at the end of last year and at the beginning of this year, he was playing 90% plus. So he actually was on the field a little bit less.
He got a little banged up in the game.
Did he come out because of injury?
Yep.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he did.
He's not listed on anywhere questionable on here, so he must be fine. Regardless, I don't think it has so much. I think there can be weeks where you see Jamo and Sam LaPorta be productive. I honestly think there may be more of a correlation on the weeks where Amon-Ra St. Brown has double-digit targets. I think those are the weeks you might find a stronger correlation.
Yeah, it just makes you wonder, though, like the correlation with Amon-Ra versus what about the weeks that Gibbs and Montgomery combine for 3+ touchdowns apiece, because they're getting all the touches in the red zone. And that's my worry, is like when it's not one weapon, it's another. And sometimes that's LaPorta. A lot of times it's not. I mean, the games where he didn't score a touchdown last year, 8-3, 5-9, 3-4-4, and at the end of the season, 10-13, and he had one high target game of 18 with like 10 targets against Buffalo in week 15. So that was nice to see at the end of the year. But again, that's like 6-7, 10-7, 8-7 targets, and that's I mean, I don't know how much of that target volume you're going to be getting on a consistent basis with, again, for the rest of the year. He jumps from 9 in week 1 to 4 in Chicago. I mean, some of it is, you almost just wonder, is this like is it a schematically based outcome for Sam LaPorta any given week, depending on who they play?
It could
and
be.
If you can predict that correctly, then I guess you'll be fine. But
I don't know. With the success they were having down the field yesterday, I am not necessarily surprised that Sam LaPorta didn't do anything. That is usually the 50-point Lions games are usually the games where Sam LaPorta does nothing. And honestly, there are times where there have 50-point Lions games.
And when they can't get explosives like Green Bay, they usually use their short to intermediate guys like LaPorta.
I would probably say hold. It's been 2 weeks, and you saw 9 targets. He picked up where he left off the end of last year, and then goes down to 4 in a game where they were up big and getting a ton of explosive plays. So it kind of evens out for me. I'm not trying to sell him unless I can really down here to somebody I think is going to be equivalent production wise, which it's possible I could do that. Yeah. I just don't think people are buying for a good price. Yeah. So
I'm concerned. I'm going to go hold as well because I think that the best time to sell is when LaPorta has a big game, because I think he'll have some really dud games as well. Whereas you see a guy like Tucker Kraft, who I actually moved to tight end 4 overall in my rest of season rankings because there's just less competition there, and he's so explosive with his opportunities. So that is an interesting thing to note. As I have Warren at 3, Tucker Kraft at 4. You could switch him if you wanted to, and then Sam LaPorta is now at tight end 5 for me.
All right, let's talk about Bashal Tuten, who in week 2, after Danny spent his entire waiver budget, he made Danny proud because he did have a touchdown. The problem is this: Bashal Tuten snaps. Obviously, in week 1, we were very concerned about the usage. I obviously had him scheduled to be dropped. I tried to cancel it. I didn't cancel it. I'm an idiot. But he played 6% of snaps in his first week in the NFL. Tank Bigsby last week in that offense played 21% of snaps. This week, Tank Bigsby is gone, and so Bashal Tuten basically took his snaps. He plays 25% of snaps. Yep. He does have 8 rushing attempts, whereas Tank Bigsby last week had 5. He also had 2 targets and 2 receptions, and that's where he definitely has an advantage as the backup running back in Jacksonville over Tank Bigsby, is that he does have a pretty good receiving skill set as well. He makes the guy miss, and he scores a touchdown. He ends with 15 points on the day. He also has 42 yards on the ground in a game that was pretty back and forth with Cincinnati, where they had the lead and probably should have won that game. Now, in terms of Tuten, it really does depend. I'm going to probably say hold here for Tuten just because I don't think people are going to overreact enough to sell him high. If you can get somebody to overreact on him, like, for example, let's just pull up Danny's rankings and see where Danny has Tuten ranked. So Danny has Tuten ranked with Ramondre, Scadaboo, Dylan Sampson, Trey Benson.
He's being reasonable
That's reasonable.
That is very reasonable.
But I will say, I probably would be okay moving Tuten for Stevenson.
I would definitely move Tuten for Scad.
I would move Tuten for Scadaboo. I would move Tuten for Aaron Jones, who they're ranked back-to-back. I would move him for probably Tracy and Charbonnet as well. And so that's kind of the range where I think, But Danny's higher on his players than anybody. And the fact that he's being reasonable tells me that most people, I think, are going to be very reasonable with Bashal Tuten. And I think at that point, he just becomes a handcuff and somebody you plug in during your bye weeks. I'm going to say hold for Bashal Tuten.
I'll go with hold for Tuten as well. If you, again, similar to what Avery's saying, if you have anybody freaking and they're like, oh my gosh, he scored the same amount as Travis Etienne, and they are casual enough where they don't look at the splits in the snap share and the opportunity there, and they don't realize that Etienne really is the established running back one there for the foreseeable future, I do think you can capitalize there and get a little bit more than what most people can get for Bashal Tuten at the moment. Alvin Kamara is another guy that I wanted to bring up this week. He's just, gosh, I love Alvin Kamara. He is. First off,
if anything, buy.
That's why I have him on here. I basically just want to tell you guys, Alvin Kamara is a stinking buy. I mean, 85.9% of the offensive snaps for the New Orleans Saints. I mean, this is a certified bell cow that doesn't take the punishment that a 20-plus carry guy does every single week.
Yep.
Except, he did have 21 carries against San Francisco, but 11 carries against Arizona and still has 13 points because he salvages his day with a touchdown. When he has less carries, he's going to find a way to get a touchdown. When he has, 20 carries, he can also get 6 targets at the same time, 6 receptions, and score 16 points. This is a touchdown week against Arizona week 1, a non-touchdown week against San Francisco, where he's been, honestly, production-wise, pretty lackluster for the Alvin Kamara name, the Alvin Kamara brand at this point. 13 and 16 points respectively. I think at this point, this is just... It's a bad offense where they're passing the ball like crazy, and when Rattler or Shuck at some point needs to check it down to Alvin Kamara, they're going to continue to do that. I would expect more 6+ target games from Alvin Kamara, and I think from here on out, again, this is you're absolutely correct. This is baked into his price, and this is the reason that he's not ranked in that like premier level of running backs like Derrick Henry, like Achane, like CMC, etc. is because for every 44, 25, 30-point game that he has a 12er. He has another 12er. He has an 8-pointer. He has a 15-pointer. And you're like, Okay, you know, it's
it's
nothing
Alvin Kamara.
sexy. It's nothing. It's Alvin Kamara, exactly. So look, these are some of the more games that you're going to see from Kamara, and every once in a while you're going to have 25+ point games from him, where he's just people are going to realize this is the exact same Alvin Kamara that we've come to know and love for the last 6-7 years. And I don't think it's there's nothing indicating that this is going to stop barring injury for him this season, because the usage is exactly the same, and it's the same that it's been for his entire career in New Orleans.
He has been a top 16 running back
He
for
is
8
he
years
is
straight.
all decade.
He has
all decade.
He's
down.
all ever for fantasy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, my gosh, he's been a
consistency.
running back 1 for 7 of the last 8 years.
Yeah,
I mean, I've never seen somebody as consistent as Alvin.
And
Kamara
he missed 2 games a year. He wasn't a running back.
He misses 2 to 3 games every single year.
Yeah,
like this is just what he does.
Yep.
And so yeah, if anything, he's a buy. Look, he's ranked as a mid running back 2, and he's producing as a high end running back 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you do the math there. Final guy we'll talk about here is DeAndre Swift. Yesterday, what you saw was Kyle Monangai kind of cut into DeAndre Swift's workload. In week 1 for Swiftie, you had 81% of snaps. In week 2 against Detroit, he was more productive, but had 57% of the snaps. Look, Monangai got the last 11 snaps of the game because it was a blowout, and so that is going to look worse on paper than it actually was. Swiftie, on the other hand, ran the ball 12 times for 63 yards. He averaged 5.5 yards per carry in this game. Okay, Kyle Monangai, on the other hand, 8 rushes for 36 yards, so not near as efficient. DeAndre Swift also had 3 targets and 3 receptions. It was a blowout game. I don't think, when you're looking at how these guys were utilized, I don't think that I'm necessarily concerned that Monangai is going to cut into Swiftie's workload huge. I would say, actually, with Swiftie, it depends on where people have him ranked. I would still take Swift over Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, personally. I think he has much more receiving upside than Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt does, and so I think his floor is higher. Swift or Pollard?
Swift.
Okay, Swift or Javonte?
Javonte, hands down.
Yeah, I've got Javonte ranked quite a bit ahead of him.
I moved Javonte even further up my boards this week. I think I have him at running back 18.
That's where I have him running back 18 with Etienne, Henderson, Pollard, Connor, and Walker in a tier.
Yeah, I'm not freaking with Swift this week because Roschon was out, and Monangai got a majority of those opportunities came at the end of the game when they were down by so much.
He got the last 11 carries or 11 snaps, so that's really what it was.
Yep.
Now, Swiftie's a hold / maybe buy for me.
I think he's a soft buy.
Yeah, I would say soft buy as well. I like Swiftie, to be honest with you. I think he's going to be just fine there. He looks efficient, and that's kind of what's important right now. So there you go. Make sure you drop a like on the video if you enjoyed the video. Make sure you're also subscribed if you play fantasy football. We'll have this discussion every single week with players that you should maybe be moving, or maybe you should be adding them to your teams. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you later.